Hi everyone, we're going to be reading Del Toro Moon by Darby Carshut, and today we're going to be reading chapter 14. Matt, a hand nudged my shoulder. I jerked awake. For a moment I stared at my father, my throat slick with sweat. Man, I was glad to see his face, because I'd been locked in one twisted nightmare. I dreamt I was blundering around the maze, struggling to see through a thick fog. The moisture on my lips tasted like salt water. I tried to catch up with El Cid, who was always a few strides ahead, appearing then disappearing, his gray coat blending with the mist. I was afraid to call his name in case the Skinners heard me. I tried to reach for him, but my legs felt like weights were tied to my ankles. All that while, all the while, I knew there was something I had to do before it was too late. Something for El Cid. I can't find him, I gasped. Who? El Cid. My face softened. Only a dream. I nodded, even as I thought about it, the memory grew thinner and thinner, like fog when the sun came out. Fine with me. Is it time? Z, get a move on. He'd left boots beating a rhythm in the hallway's floor. I yawned and stretched, thinking about last night. I swear I had just crashed into bed after staying up late with my father and brother planning how to safeguard the scientists. It felt all kinds of good to be part of the discussion, even though I didn't contribute much. The best way to learn about the family business is to be involved in the family business, Dad had said last night, especially at a strategic level. We all threw out ideas, but in the end we came back to doing what we do best. Ride hard, swing hard, and wipe out as many of those Skinners as we could before Vandermeer, Alberni, and the rest arrived to set up camp. Reduce the Skinner population so they'd be less of a threat. Isn't it called a war of attrition or something like that? Ben had said. He laughed when Dad's jaw dropped. See, Pop, I listen to your history lessons sometimes, he added. What about the coffer? I had leaned back on the sofa, my feet propped up on the coffee table, and a bowl of buttery popcorn on my lap. Won't do any good if those Skinners are escaping as fast as we kill them. Ben reached over and snatched the bowl from me. Give me that. Hey, I grabbed at it. He slapped my hands away and held it tighter. Too slow and too low. Dad cleared his throat in a meaningful rumble until we stopped. That is why our first attack is to reach the coffer and seal it. This is also a good time for you two hombres to learn another use of your maces. Sorry. He eyed me. And Matt about the cave. Ben already told me. Pretty tight back in there. I know. I hope I sounded braver than I felt. After one more spine-popping stretch, I threw back the covers and rolled out of bed into my clothes, then joined Dad in the kitchen. Outside the window, the sky was the flat gray before dawn. On the counter, the coffee machine mumbled complaints to itself as it labored away. Over the crunch of cereal and toast, I heard my brother stumbling across the living room. He appeared and sank down at the table. Without a word, Dad poured him a cup of coffee, light on the sugar, heavy on the milk, and set it in front of him. While Ben attempted to kick-start his brain, I finished my breakfast, one eye on our father. He stood at the sink, chasing down one aspirin after another. Between gulps of water, at 4 tablets, I started to worry. Bad headache? Not as yet. Before I could ask further, he headed for the front door. 5 minutes, gentlemen, and we ride. By the time the sun hoisted itself over the eastern horizon, the 6 of us were waiting just outside the gate. My gaze drifted skyward, the tops of the buttes glowing red and gold in the beams of the rising sun. All beacons of Gondorish. All beacons of Gondorish. We will try the same tactic as the other day. Dad circled his right arms a few times, then flipped his mace end over end and caught it by the haft. Hopefully, this time it will work. Something niggled at me. Something about the coffer. I shrugged the thought away. Dad knows what he's doing. We started through the gate's shadow. I looked up. The walls rose and seemed to pinch together at the top. Shivers climbed up my spine. Wish I could have said it was from the cool air. The creaks of leather and the thump of hooves each echoed and rebounded inside the corridor. Dude, Izzy murmured to Turk. Can't you tiptoe? You sound like an elephant. Is, hush, Ben murmured. He laid a hand on the mare's neck. Not now. Way too soon for my taste. We emerged into the glowing light. The valley opened up below us, washed by a pinkish glow. Pretty if a guy Pretty. If a guy wasn't worried about being eaten by a monster. Ben, take the lead, Dad ordered. Head for the cave. Do you remember in which cannon it is hidden? Yeah. Ben secured his mace's leather strap around his wrist. Izzy prancing beneath him. Elsid, you and Matt next. Stay close to Ben. Turk and I will follow up the rear. Dad, the nagging word from earlier returned with a question I couldn't ignore. If more Skinners are getting out of the coffer, won't we be charging into an even bigger bunch of them? Wow. Ben frowned and peered northward across the valley. That's an encouraging image. Dag tugged his hat on tighter. All the more reason to ride fast, no? Stealth and speed. Elsid said to Turk and Izzy. Izzy flickered her tail. Got it. Turk? I know my job. Elsid flattened his ears. See that you execute it then. Isabel? My father touched to the brim of his hat in a salute. You have the lead. Good hunting. She gathered her hind legs beneath her, then leaped down the incline. Ben leaned back, his feet braced in the stirrups. Elsid and I followed. Hitting the valley floor, I hunched down further and tried to make myself as small of a target as I could. My pulse pounded in the rhythm of the stallion's hoofbeats. Even with Elsid's speed, I tensed each time we thundered past a boulder or a large bush. They weren't going to ambush me again, I swore to myself. Riding low in the saddle as well, my brother angled toward the northeast corner of the valley. Izzy's mane and tail were gold banners in the wind. I glanced behind. Dad rode several lengths back. Rear guard. The valley's northern wall loomed up. Blowing hard, Elsid slowed to a trot. Massive slabs of stone lay where they had peeled away and fallen from the cliff's face. I trailed Ben around the debris. He and Izzy halted by an enormous block of yellowish sandstone, the size of an 18-wheeler. It leaned against the cliff at a 45-degree angle. I could just make out a dark opening, a little higher and wider than a man, and roughly triangular in shape behind the stone. More rubble was piled in front of the entrance. A chilling breeze wafted from the opening. It also smelled like rotting meat, or something worse. Turk trotted up, Dad scanning the area. So far, so good. So this is it? I asked. The cave? He swung down from the saddle. Behind this block of sandstone? Yes. We are fortunate it hides the entrance. He patted my knees. Are you going to be okay? I'm cool. He lifted an eyebrow. I shrugged, then slipped to the ground. Too bad that chunk of rock didn't block up the cave permanently. Ben joined me and eyed the cliff. Still think we should try dynamiting this whole area? We have talked about this before, Dad said with a trace of exacerbation. Your grandfather and great grandfather and great great grandfather tried every way they could think of to block this Akir's toll, including dynamite. Nothing works for long. Why? I leaned against Elsid's warm shoulder. Dad toed the pile of rubble. My guess is that the evil trapped within eventually leaches through, just as it ultimately leaches out of the coffers. Elsid added. Toxic ghoul waste, I thought. What about the wards? Roman said they don't always work. This is true, but unless they are overwhelmed by sheer numbers, the wards will hold the longest. They are even more potent than our maces or the coffers. We can thank the memory of Her Highness for that. Her Highness being Joanne, Queen of the Crown of Spain, during the early 1600s. She had blessed everything, the maces, coffers, and especially the wards, before Santiago and his band of brothers had boarded the ship for the New World. I marveled that a royal blessing could still be so powerful after 4 centuries. Ben, Matt, once we reach the hole, I'll crawl through first. Then you two follow. As he spoke, he hooked his Stetson on Turk's saddle horn, then pulled out a small headlamp, the kind backpackers used for shirt pockets. He fastened it around his head. What about the horses? I dragged myself over. Are they going to be okay? Elsid shot me the old stink eye. I'll pretend I didn't hear that. And Javier, if you give a warning, nigh. I know, but no heroics, my friend. We can defend ourselves in the cave if the pack shows up. You three flee to safety. Oh, sure, as he said under breath. We'll just do that very thing. Good luck. The gray bumped Dad's shoulder with his nose. Boys, listen to your father. Do exactly what he tells you. Yeah, Ben, Turk said. Surprise us. Turning sideways, Dad squeezed behind the block and disappeared. My brother pulled in front of him and gave me a push towards the gap. Girls first. Funny. In spite of the dread tightening its fist around my throat, I made a face over my shoulder, then slipped inside the crevice. Trailing the fingers of my left hand along the sandpaper surface, I hurried after Dad, leaning slightly to one side. Light filtered from overhead, where the uneven edge of the block met the cliff. With each step, I swore the walls were closing in on me. I wondered what Ben would do if I suddenly spun around and crawled my way through him to escape. It'd serve him right. When I was little, Ben thought it'd be funny to see me in one of the empty feed bins. Although the bin always seemed plenty big to me when I was scooping grain out of it, it sure didn't feel roomy when he closed the hinged lid and latched it. Squished into a ball, arms pinned against my chest, I had less than an inch between me and all four sides. No matter how I squirmed, I couldn't move. Worse, the lid pressed against my face. I screamed forever. I had also wet my pants by the time my father rescued me. Alcid came tearing in front of the field, barely in time to stop Dad from giving Ben a serious whomping with his belt. Lost in my memory, I bumped into Dad. I took a step back, rubbing my nose, and peered past him. A stone wall blocked the end of the canyon. Where's the cave? Looked down. At knee height, a black hole gaped at me. A hungry maw, eager for boy. I gulped. Dad adjusted the headlamp and clicked on the light. He swung his head from side to side, the beam dancing over the stone, then squatted down. I knelt beside him. A short crawl through the tunnel, then we will be in the cave. Think of nothing but follow me. Not trusting my voice, I nodded and made sure the mace's loop was tight around my wrist. Here we go. On his hands and knees, Dad vanished into the darkness. And that is the end of chapter 14. Yeah, if you liked it, please subscribe and like and turn on notifications. As I said in the last video, that is now officially added to the list of things you have to do. And if you have any questions or comments, just put them in the comments. Thank you for listening. Bye.